At 20 miles per hour.
And a live look in Biloxi, Mississippi, where the storm is headed. Right now, it's packing winds of 85 miles per hour. You can see the rain on the camera right there. And here's a live look in Gulf Shores, Alabama. You can see the rain coming down hard and the wind starting to pick up. The trees slightly blowing there. That storm only expected to strengthen as the night goes on and it moves further inland.
Officials across the Gulf have been warning all week not to take any chances there and to be prepared. We've got night team coverage of Nate tonight, starting with meteorologist Eggers, who has the latest track.
Yeah, Justin and Amaka, I said earlier this evening that I think we've been a little bit desensitized by how many major hurricanes we've tracked through this very active hurricane season, but this doesn't make this any less of a very serious situation. It is a very serious situation. First landfall happening earlier this evening and headed for a second landfall somewhere along that Mississippi coastline as we approach midnight tonight. So here's that official forecast track that's just been updated by the Hurricane Center, a Category 1 storm, and losing just a little bit of strength. So no longer expected to gain strength and become a Category 2 storm. Here's that second landfall somewhere near the Biloxi, Mississippi coastline here. Midnight, 1 a.m. We'll be tracking that 85-mile-per-hour winds. And as it quickly moves over land, it's expected to lose strength, turn into a tropical storm by tomorrow afternoon, and continue to zip along across the Appalachian Trail and into the northeast as a remnant low. So eventually, we will deal with some of the rain that's left over from Nate, but nothing like what we're seeing now in those Gulf Coast states. As you can see, the heavy rain and the strong winds already making their way in, as well as a tornado watch that's been issued for the areas in yellow until 2 a.m. and active tornado warnings. We've seen several of these and reports of water spouts. It's a very serious situation at this time of the night. Hurricane warnings still posted, as well as tropical storm warnings that stretch all the way up to northwest of Atlanta, Georgia. And that storm surge is really the biggest threat at this point that we're watching very closely. 6 to 11-foot storm surge. The shallowness of the Gulf of Mexico only making that problem worse, or making that situation more serious there. Those waves much larger, and also the storm system approaching right around high tide time. Now, talking about the rainfall totals that we're expecting, anywhere from 2 to 5 inches, could even be locally 7 inches, but that's the highest that this scale goes. The good thing about this system is that it is really cruising along in speed, and so it doesn't have a lot of opportunity to sit over one area and bring copious amounts of rain to one spot before it's moving on to the next location. As I mentioned before, bringing some beneficial rain into our backyard. We'll have to cover this in more detail in just a few minutes.
It's going to hit you hard. It's going to hit you fast. And if you're in the way, you're not going to be able to get out of it.
The mayor of New Orleans with a stern warning for people there before the storm hit tonight.
And in Alabama, this is the scene this evening. You can see the heavy winds and rain and ominous clouds over the ocean. That was just before sunset there. Now, states across the Gulf region all bracing for impact tonight.
With the storm making landfall, people there now are just ready to hunker down and brave the elements. Our night team coverage continues with Natasha Chen live in Biloxi, Mississippi with the very latest.
Nate could be the third hurricane to hit the U.S. mainland in just 6 weeks. Hurricane watches and warnings extend all the way from Louisiana's coastline to Florida's, with a tropical storm watch issued for parts of Georgia as well. Landfall is expected tonight somewhere southeast of New Orleans with possible 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts. New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu issued a mandatory curfew that's in effect Saturday from 6 p.m. Central until Sunday morning, while 3 coastal states, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, all declared state of emergencies as Nate approaches.
We could see a storm surge of up to 10 feet, isolated tornadoes, inland flooding, and flooding of low-lying coastal areas. Our plans are no good if the public does not heed the warnings that we're putting out.
And people are taking these warnings seriously.
We're doing everything we can to prepare and hopefully help the islanders for what we can do with batteries, flashlights, ice. We have a generator here, so hopefully that'll work and probably one of the only places open here for the next couple of days.
President Trump tweeted out reassurances Saturday that FEMA is prepared for Hurricane Nate and urged residents to listen to local authorities. In Biloxi, Mississippi, I'm Natasha Chen.
Well, right now we're getting a lot more wind and rain that has really picked up in the last 30 minutes. It's just falling in sheets right now. And behind us, we're seeing the rain actually move very quickly on the streets. The only cars that have been out there have been police and National Guard vehicles, but we see that when they pass, there are splashes of water on all sides. And right now we are waiting to see how this progresses through the night, especially as high tide is supposed to come just after midnight. We're live in Biloxi, Mississippi. Natasha Chen, 7 News.
And Natasha, before you go, with all of the recent hurricanes reaching categories as high as 3 and 4, have you seen people across the Gulf heeding the words of officials as the storm was just forecast as a Category 1 storm?
Well, people that we've spoken to were actually telling me that they didn't have a whole lot of warning about this hurricane. They feel like it came about very quickly, but they were not taking this quite as seriously as they would a Katrina. If I can show you right on this pole over here, this red line that you see, that is the water level where Katrina brought the water level to in 2005. And so they're really just trying to avoid one of those. The people I spoke to believe that this is less than that in seriousness. So they told us that they're prepared, but they're not quite as concerned as they would be normally.
All right, thank you, Natasha. That's Natasha Chen reporting live in Biloxi, Mississippi.